Hey, it's Sig, and welcome back. I'm bringing you yet another little video today, and it's yet another little knitting chat. This one is going to be pretty self-indulgent, mainly because I'm haunted by the memory of today's topic, and I figured that the best way to get rid of the ghost is to make a video about it. But first, let's take a look at the craft I'm working on today. Yes, it is once again the blanket that I've been working on for the past few videos. It really does take a lot of patience and time to complete a larger knit project, but I think my progress is pretty good so far, and I'm even thinking that I might be near the end of this blanket, but since I'm just vibing it out, who knows how long I'm gonna knit this, like how big I want it to be, so for now, it's just what I'm working on. If there's a craft you want to work on, go grab it and tell me about it in the comments below after the video, or, just grab a drink and a snack and whatever else your heart desires and, get comfortable while we talk about a crossover that's truly, truly always been boggling my mind since I've seen it. Let's set the scene. It's 2021, you're home alone watching your family's dogs while your parents are traveling. You've spent the day doing some tidying and now you've settled down to keep watching the show Sleepy Hollow that you rediscovered recently on Hulu. Now, you've gotten through 2 seasons and you have now arrived at Season 3, Episode 5. The previously on Sleepy Hollow blurb pops up and you see something so shocking, so haunting. You have to pause because you believe briefly you've lost your entire mind. Because, according to the previously on blurb, the last episode you watched of Sleepy Hollow wasn't actually the last episode of Sleepy Hollow. It was, in fact, actually an episode of Bones that you have not watched. Thus, you have discovered that in 2015, there was, no lie, a Bones and Sleepy Hollow crossover, the knowledge of which will keep you up for many nights. Yes, that's right. In 2015, the 2 Fox television shows Bones and Sleepy Hollow had a 2-hour event in which the main characters of both shows crossed over into their respective universes. And when I first discovered this crossover, I literally had to pause the show and text my one friend to tell them about this and also look up to double check that this was true and it was a real crossover episode and I didn't, somehow suddenly slip into an alternate dimension or something. Just because it really blew my mind that Fox had these shows combined because they are literally the exact opposite of each other. Sure, they both share the same basic structure of a procedural cop propaganda show. Just, think about other classic cop propaganda shows. You know the kind. But there's a huge difference between Bones and Sleepy Hollow. Namely, one of them canonically is steeped in major supernatural elements, and the other is basically not supernatural at all. Alright, so for some context for the unfamiliar, let's give a quick rundown of what exactly Bones and Sleepy Hollow are as shows. Let's start with Bones first. The very first episode of Bones aired in 2005 and lasted for a full 12 seasons, wrapping up in 2017. The basic plot follows forensic anthropologist Dr. Temperance Brennan, who's sometimes referred to as the nickname of Bones, and FBI agent Booth as they solve crimes utilizing the dead remains of victims. There's a host of other characters involved, and usually the plot follows a basic template of, a body is discovered, typically it's nothing more than bones, and the team reconstructs what happened using TV forensic science. Bones is very much set in a world similar to ours, where the existence of the supernatural is speculated upon, but, the show makes it clear that it doesn't really exist. So I guess in comparison to our world, it's a little more confirmed that the supernatural doesn't exist in the Bones universe, but, we could go back and forth about that all day long. Of course, since there are 12 seasons, there's a lot of stuff that happens to the Bones team, and there's even some overarching plot. Don't get me wrong, but I think at one point, isn't there a serial killer or something is after the whole team and they get targeted and stuff? I'm pretty sure that happens. And, I have watched some Bones, but it was way back in high school, and it's been a little while since I've laid eyes on a full episode. So I am vaguely remembering stuff as I go over what Bones is about. Now, despite being a very realistic TV show, there are 2 episodes I want to highlight in Bones that touch upon the subject of the supernatural, just so we can see the difference between Bones and Sleepy Hollow, and we can all really understand why this crossover is just so bizarre. It's Season 4, Episode 14. Agent Booth has been kidnapped and is trapped in a building. During this time, he is hallucinating a friend of his from the army who died, named Teddy. At one point, the building he's in floods, and he manages to swim to the top, but will quickly drown if he can't get the door that leads to the outside open. The vision of Teddy dives down into the water and brings up a crowbar for Booth to use, which he actually does manage to literally use, and allows him to muscle the door open and save himself. At the end of the episode, Booth and Bones go to this woman's grave to pay her a visit. During the visit, Bones encounters a woman who we as the audience recognize as Teddy. Teddy remarks to Brennan that it's a beautiful day to be alive, to which Brennan agrees. So, Booth had his life saved by a ghost, and later Brennan exchanges words with the very same ghost. So, there's an example of supernatural in the Bones universe. The next time we glimpse some hardcore supernatural stuff is in Season 8, Episode 9, where the episode itself is from the point of view of a skull. The skull belongs to a boy named Colin, who at the end of the episode appears as a ghost and moves on to the afterlife. A reoccurring character who's a medium in the series is also in this episode and sees Colin's ghost move on, even though the show has debunked this medium in previous episodes. So Bones does sprinkle in the idea that the supernatural could be real in this episode, along with the previous one we talked about, but on the whole is sort of like how Broadchurch did it, actually. If you can remember, there was a psychic guy that reveals kind of what happened to the murdered kid in that show, but it's vague enough that no one believes him, and then he's just sort of off the show and it's never addressed again, which, now that I'm talking about it, isn't that crazy? Like, we can all agree that that's crazy. Like, potentially, the psychic guy really was psychic, and it's never brought up again in Broadchurch. But, you know, that's a whole other video, I guess. To get back on track, let's now turn our attention to the other show, Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow aired in 2013 and ended in 2017 along with Bones, totaling 4 seasons. The basic plot is that Ichabod Crane, a soldier from the U.S. Army during the Revolutionary War, is killed by a Hessian soldier working for the British at the same moment Crane beheads the soldier, aka the Headless Horseman. Crane then wakes up in Sleepy Hollow in the year 2013, meeting our second main character, Lieutenant Abigail Mills, and realizes that the Headless Horseman, Hessian shoulder, has also been resurrected. The story then follows the two unraveling a mystery that started during the Revolutionary War. The afterlife is there's witchcraft, George Washington is a reoccurring side character. There's really just so much dense lore between the 4 seasons of this show that, if I'm being honest, couldn't even really get into it. But it's a really fun show, and it's one you can turn your brain off and laugh out. And yeah, it is very silly to have the founding fathers be side characters, and the show isn't above criticism, but when I recently watched it in 2020, I found myself having a blast because the lore just gets really insane most of the time, and very often I was just laughing at some of the ridiculousness this show can provide. So obviously, Sleepy Hollow is a show where the supernatural reigns supreme. It's inherent to the plot, and without the supernatural elements, there really wouldn't be a show. With Bones being so based in the real world versus the supernatural world of Sleepy Hollow, it's very apparent why there would be a crossover bound to happen between these two. This is sarcasm. Thus, the inevitable meat of our little chat has arrived, and we must now cast our minds back to 2015, the year of the incident. It's October, and whether you know it or not, you're about to experience a 2-hour event the likes of which will promptly be forgotten by both fandoms in service of keeping the general canon of the respective shows. The Resurrection in the Remains episode 5 of Bones' 11th season opens with a seasonally appropriate prank war involving those of the Jeffersonian, which is interrupted by the discovery of a body in an old church. Next to this body, a mort safe is found, which is just an iron coffin that was used to prevent grave robbing. On it is a strange symbol. Inside is another body, a headless redcoat. The discovery of the headless body is what gets the attention of our friends over in Sleepy Hollow. Crane and now FBI agent Abby show up to claim the headless body, but the catch is that the folks at the Jeffersonian need the body as evidence. At first, our Sleepy Hollow duo believe that this could be the body of the actual Headless Horseman, who at this point has been revealed to be Crane's old best friend Abraham von Brunt, but the narrative reveals that it's an infamously cruel commander of the British forces named General William Howe. Meanwhile, Brennan Booth and the gang are hard at work trying to discover what happened to the other body found alongside the Headless Revolutionary one, who has been identified as a college student named Sarah Lippman. An old book with the same strange symbol that is on Howie's coffin is found in a locker belonging to Sarah, and hidden through invisible ink is the message: "The text will guide a witness to a skull that can raise the dead." Funny enough, this ties back into the Sleepy Hollow universe, as both Crane and Abby are witnesses, which are people predestined to save the world from the end of days. Yeah, a little side note here, but there's a lot of biblical lore in Sleepy Hollow. It's a little insane. Anyways, Crane goes into the Jeffersonian archives while Abby and Booth split up to investigate Sarah's apartment. At Sarah's apartment, the two find everything Sarah needed to dig up Howie's skull and discover that Sarah, 2 weeks before her death, went out for drinks with a friend to celebrate her experience of dying and subsequently coming back to life. See, her friend Martin had noticed that Sarah was obsessed with what happens after you die, so using the skull as a luck charm, he helped induce Sarah's heart to stop beating and then restarted it, allowing Sarah to have a life-death experience. Sadly, though, the skull was not meant as a good luck charm, actually, since it was used to kill her. Through porcelain tooth antics, the Jeffersonian team managed to uncover that Joel, Sarah's boyfriend, was the one who had killed her. Sarah had encouraged him to also experience death, and while Sarah had seen her dead sister, which gave her great comfort, Joel had seen nothing, which crushed his religious beliefs in the afterlife. It's funny to point out that by this point in the Sleepy Hollow universe, it's been well established that purgatory exists, and actually Abby herself has been there for an extended amount of time. But we don't have time to get into that because Howie's body can go back now with our Sleepy Hollow duo since the case has been closed. To get the body to be quote-unquote buried in Sleepy Hollow, Crane gives Brennan a note that he wrote on Washington's behalf authorizing such burial. It's pointed out by Jeffersonian member Angela that he couldn't have been around to write that note since Washington had been dead for a very, very long time at that point, which is brushed off by Crane through it simply being his ancestor. And before anyone can question that, well, it's time to end the show. And before you switch any channels, this crossover event keeps chugging forward, for right after the Bones credits roll, Episode 5 of Sleepy Hollow's 3rd season is up in the time slot directly after Bones. Dead Men Tell No Tales picks up right where Bones left off, with the dead corpse of General Howie being transported back to Sleepy Hollow, the titular name of the town the show Sleepy Hollow takes place in. A quick side note to give full context to this episode, by the way, there's this mysterious woman named Pandora who shows up in Season 3 to essentially be the villain of the first half of the season's run. It's a Deadlier Scooby-Doo kind of situation where she'll just summon some monsters from this box she keeps around just to see how Abby and Crane will deal with it. So this character, Pandora, raises General Howie back from the dead. The story reveals a little of Crane's past involving General Howie, as Washington sent Crane to kill Howie during the invasion of Manhattan. Although loyal to his cause, Crane finds himself conflicted and offers Howie a way out that doesn't involve killing him. If General Howie would just order his men off the island, there'd be no need for any violence. Of course, this isn't acceptable to Howie, and Crane would have killed him if it weren't for soldiers interrupting them. With a new lease on some undead life, Howie also raises some dead people of his own, an army of the dead. At Sleepy Hollow's classic cemetery, the group of undead kill a kid out for early Halloween antics because, yeah, it's the night before Halloween, and Abby and Crane are called onto the case as they receive news that Howie's corpse never made it from the Jeffersonian. So on Halloween morning, Abby and Crane are at the cemetery only to find a dead body and the amassed undead army of General Howie. Bullets don't do much damage to the walking corpses, but when the first rays of daylight hit them, they disappear beneath the earth. The Sleepy Hollow duo hit the books and find an answer on how to defeat the undead. This answer can only be found in General Howie's original tomb, and since Abby managed to shoot off a bone from Howie's hand, the duo decide that Dr. Brennan would be the best person to help them figure out where Howie had originally been laid to rest. After heading back to DC and showing Brennan the bone, they discover that their destination will be the United States Capitol building. There, the group finds a hidden door utilizing Crane's mason ring to open it and find a hidden tomb with runes matching Howie's coffin. To amp up the tension, Booth steps on a lever that causes a wall to drop in the middle of the room, separating Brennan and Crane from Booth and Abby. To complicate this, there's also blue fire that begins to drop from the ceiling via a pipe system. Crane claims it's legendary fire that is inextinguishable called Greek fire, to which Brennan says it's just napalm. Through the use of clever gunfire, Booth gets Crane and Brennan out of the room, and Crane and Abby agree that the fire must be the weakness to their undead army problem. The catch is that if they use the inextinguishable Greek fire, the town will also burn. The solution found is to lure the undead army into a complicated network of tunnels below the town that the Sleepy Hollow gang uses quite often throughout the show. With the zombie problem dealt with, Crane and Abby video chat with Booth and Brennan, and that's the end of the crossover. Sure, there's some stuff at the end of Sleepy Hollow that sets up some stuff for next episode, but we aren't really here to talk about Sleepy Hollow's deep lore. Maybe I'll do another video on that, but not today. Even rewatching both episodes for this video, I was still so awed by the fact that Fox really did make this crossover between the two shows. In some general research I did, just to see how people were reacting to this, at the time, it really did seem that most people were in agreement that the crossover just actually doesn't exist. It seems most people weren't huge fans of the crossover. In an Entertainment Weekly article, it stated that a producer of Bones likened this event to The X-Files, a Fox show from the 90s that combined cop procedural show tactics with the supernatural. The producers went on to say that the Hour of Bones is the Scully portion, while Sleepy Hollow's hour is Fox Mulder. Which, if I'm honest, is a little weird of a comparison just because the extent of the supernatural in Sleepy Hollow and the lack of supernatural elements in Bones isn't really the same thing as comparing two characters from the X-Files, but, whatever. And, side note, if you haven't quite made the connection, I did name two of the parts of this video, after this comment, because I thought it would be really funny, because this part really stuck out to me. Even Tom Meeson, the actor playing Ichabod Crane, said to E! News that he thought, "No, that's a terrible idea. Of course it won't work," when he first was pitched the idea. The sentiment was shared by Booth's actor, who shared with E! News that he didn't quite get it either. I'll never know exactly what went down to explain why there was a Sleepy Hollow Bones crossover, but it truly is baffling. Frankly, one of the theories that has been thrown out there was that the higher-ups at Fox were hoping that the great ratings received by Bones would rub off via association on Sleepy Hollow. See, by the time Season 3 rolled around for Sleepy Hollow, the lore surrounding the show was pretty thick, and it seemed that ratings weren't all that great. If you were to ask me, I don't think the crossover had the intended effect, since Sleepy Hollow had only one more season after this. But hey, I'll also say that this crossover did blow my entire mind when I first discovered it, and I literally could not stop thinking about this, and so I decided to make the video, so take that with what you will. The fact that this show staunchly in the category of realism would dip its canon into the supernatural of Sleepy Hollow is so funny to me. It also brings up a lot of questions if you do take the crossover at face value, aka Sleepy Hollow and Bones take place in the same universe, because that means a lot of interesting weather patterns are experienced by the folks over in the Bone Show, because Sleepy Hollow has several end-of-the-world scenarios. It also means that the future for the characters of Bones is pretty bleak if Sleepy Hollow's 4th season's prediction of the future is to be believed, where a lot of people die after essentially the end of the world. But I won't get into it because really I don't care enough about Sleepy Hollow's lore to recount what happened in Season 4, and also they kind of walk back that ending future anyways. And again, most people do not consider the crossover canon. At the end of the day, I really just wanted to share my thoughts on this insane crossover, because to my knowledge, there aren't really a lot of TV crossovers like this. Like, when I think about crossovers, I think about those older Disney Channel live-action ones, like, I think there was, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody crossing over with That's So Raven and Hannah Montana, and a more recent crossover I know of is the April Fool's Steven Universe Uncle Grandpa one, but that doesn't really truly count, mainly because it's an April Fool's joke and truly doesn't affect the canon of either show. So if you know of any equally crazy crossovers, feel free to tell me about them in the comments down below, because I'd love to hear about them. And if you have seen the Sleepy Hollow Bones crossover, I would truly be over the moon to hear about your thoughts on the subject, because truly insane crossover in my mind. And with that, our chat has come to an end. Thanks for watching a rather indulgent video once more. I really needed to get this crossover out of my system, and making this video has certainly done that. I'm going to be leaving some of the news sources I used in the description below, so if you want to check those out, feel free to. I always love being able to progress on my blanket. Probably next time we sit down, I'll still be working on this blanket, but oh well, them's are the breaks. And also, I am working on a couple other projects, so maybe it'll be a different one. I never know. I really appreciate those who take time out of their busy schedules to watch one of my little videos. If you liked this video, please feel free to leave a like or a comment, or hey, maybe even subscribe to my channel. I have some great projects in the works, especially an upcoming one that I can't wait to finish. So again, thank you so much for watching, and until our next little chat, stay safe out there, and good luck.